So as for Tim, I met Tim at the Denver Fly Fishing Show a couple years ago and watched him tie amazing deer hair bass bugs. So I asked him to present for us, and he graced us with two very informative presentations so far. And he's back for a third here uh, to do a presentation on large pike and musky flies and some mixed hair techniques. Um, Tim Jacobs is a Michigan native and is now an angler, fly tyer, photographer, and author from the Roaring Fork Valley in Colorado. He was a Federation of Fly Fishers certified casting instructor in the 1990s and taught the Sage casting clinics. And then each summer, he's a casting instructor for numerous events in Colorado and Michigan. Tim has published numerous articles and authored two books. Fly tying and fishing deer hair flies, and bass tactics for bass and other warm water species. They're both outstanding books. I have little tabs in both of them for reference. He appears at numerous fly fishing shows, and he's on the Whiting Farms, Regal Vice, and Nature's Spirit Pro staff. Tim's a great teacher and presenter, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy this. With that, I'll hand it over to Tim.
There. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you, Mike. It's good to be here. I really enjoy these Zoom events because I don't have to like go stay in a hotel and do all that stuff. I just get to sit here in my house and tie flies, which I enjoy doing. Yeah, so I thought what I would do tonight is I am going to spin some deer hair for you later. We'll kind of see how long this first fly takes. It's a little quicker fly, but what I'd do is I'll talk a little bit about and tie a big pike streamer for you. Let me go ahead and bring my camera down a little bit, adjust it. Here we go. That's a pretty good view of the hook, isn't it? Everybody see that pretty well?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. If you guys have spent much time looking at ties for pike and muskie, one of the things I've noticed is that there is just, man, if you Google pike muskie flies, YouTube or wherever, Instagram, whatever, I mean, there are just a bazillion patterns out there. And it took me a while. I kind of kept sorting through them, and one of the things, you had to let go of when you think of trout flies. Although trout flies are even getting to be not quite that the same way, but when you think of trout flies, I think of things like Adams dry flies and Hendrickson's and all those kind of traditional hare's ears, pheasant tails, all that kind of stuff. Although there's a lot more stuff happening in trout fishing too, but there's more of a codification of the patterns in that when you say a name, like if I say Adams dry fly, and let me lift my camera up here just a little bit. So if I say Adams dry fly, I suspect that almost all you guys, it pops into, if you've been tying flies for very long, you know what I'm talking about. But if I were to name some of the big streamer, everybody is naming these streamer patterns. Some guys I see just do a kind of there's a bucktail pike streamer, which I think that makes more sense than some of the other names. But when you look at them, there's just so many of them. And it took me a long time to kind of wade through all of that. And I finally kind of, in my own mind, distilled it down to an understanding of what went into the fly more so than I'm going to tie this like a plain chocolate T-bone or whatever, some of these different patterns. And when you do that, these flies really are not complicated. They are comprised of four different materials in some combination or other. Okay, one of them is bucktail. That's bucktail is probably the go-to material for a lot of these patterns, and it's a great pattern. And I'm going to show you a couple techniques for using bucktail. Another material is flash, some kind of a flash material included in almost all of them. Um, and then another material is some kind of streamer hair. And oh, the other one I have is feathers. I forgot to grab my feathers. Well, feathers. They're just across the hall. Maybe I'll go get them. I don't know. Um, so, and then the other one is maybe occasionally like rabbit strips. I can show you a pattern with rabbit strips. But if you think about more like, okay, I've got these materials that I'm going to incorporate into my fly. Now, how do I incorporate them into my fly rather than maybe, at least this is my thinking, rather than maybe going, okay, I'm going to go tie so and so's pattern. Um, I tend not to do that too much anymore. I tend to look at flies. I like ideas. Then I take them and I kind of mess around with them, and I don't claim originality on anything I do. Okay, I don't. You're never going to see the Jacob such and such or the Tim's this or that fly because I just, I steal my ideas from people. So I don't want to be, I just, that's the way I am with this stuff. So anyway, but let's tie a fly. I want to kind of tie you a sort of what I consider to be a prototypical big pike pattern. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a big hook. This is a Gamakatsu B10S. I don't know if you can see it. It's a 5/0. There's a bunch of hooks in there. There we go. You guys see that? Yeah, there. I don't know. 5/0. Now is that right way or is that reversed to you guys?
That's correct.
That's
Yep.
correct. Okay.
And
Um,
Tim, if you need to go get your feathers and stuff, that's fine.
I just have one. I was gonna put one
Yeah, that's
feather
fine.
into this thing, and I may go grab them. I know right where
Yeah,
they
we're
are.
not that official. We could edit out a little pause if you need to run across the hall and get the feathers. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Okay. So let's do this fly, and maybe we might have a little pause when I get to the point where I want to put a feather in it. So let me come down. Let me readjust my camera here, and we'll come down to and this. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let me look here. I'm going to just brush the hook shank with a little bit of Zap-A-Gap. Not that I'm not, you've heard me do Zap-A-Gap with gel spun before, but I am using a wax. This is just a 140 UTC 140 black thread. Um, but I want to get a good anchor point for my tail materials. So I'm going to start with that. So what I'm going to tie here is kind of a perch type pattern. A lot of the lakes that I fish in Michigan for, perch are one of the game fish for the pike and muskie. So perch pattern is a really good color pattern. Fire tiger, which is basically, it basically takes the rather than do kind of an olive greenish back, it's a chartreuse back on it, but it's still got that orange and yellow type of color scheme to it. So sometimes I'll tie these in more of a fire tiger look, but tonight I'm going to tie one more in a perch look. So what I've done is I cut my bucktail. I don't worry about stacking it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so let's talk about mounting bucktail a little bit. And you guys are experienced tires. There's nothing too radical here or too, that you guys probably don't know. But if think about my tie-in point with my bucktail. Okay, what I want to have happen with my bucktail? If I want to take that bucktail and flare it, I'm going to wrap it right back there, pull on it, which will flare the butts, and then I'm going to wrap through the butts. But if I want to take the bucktail instead and I want to kind of keep it together as a tail, which is what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to come in here. I'm going to flare that. Well, that flared a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to hold on to it and get a couple wraps coming back, coming forward. And now my bucktail's coming more off as a group off of my fly. Um, so that'll be the first thing I'm going to do. The other thing, next thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to use this stuff. I don't know if you guys have used this stuff, this polar chenille stuff. This stuff is great for filler inside these flies. And what's nice about it is you can depending on how much you want to wrap, you can adjust for the hook that you're using. This happens to be, I like the B10S because of the length of the gape of the hook. I used to tie deer hair bass bugs on these, but you're just always, I was always fighting the amount of shank length. The shank, I really needed a bit longer shank for deer hair, but this shank worked out real well for doing these type of flies. So, this is a 5/0, which is a really good stout hook, and it's a good hook. I've caught plenty of pike and some muskie on these size flies. So I'm going to take some of my polar chenille here, and I'm just going to tie it in here, and then I'm just going to leave it right there. Okay. Now, so there's one way of that's one method for putting in bucktail. Okay. Second method is where there aren't many flies out there that are being tied that guys haven't used this particular technique. So what I'm going to do is, and you can comb out your bucktail, there's not much under fur in that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this bucktail and I'm going to reverse it. And then I'm just going to lay it in here, kind of overlap that a little bit. You know, again, that just kind of depends on how far, how much space you need to take up. Now I'll kind of wrap back through there. And I'm just kind of coming through the butts. So I've got something like that. Now, what this does is this is going to create what you hear, if you hear everybody talk about hollow style flies, this is going to be a hollow style tie, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this bucktail back. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to wrap it first. So I'm just going to come through and cover up that bucktail. This will just provide some flash. It'll kind of continue with that yellow color coming forward. And what's nice about this thing is you can really adjust the to a different size hook. You know, if your hook happens to be a little longer shank hook, well, you just wrap this a little further forward, and let's tie that off right there. And then I can go ahead and do my okay. I'm gonna flare that a little bit. Now we'll come in here with my pen, and we will come back. And we'll just push that back like that. And then what I'm going to do is just come in front here and build a little bridge dam, a little thread dam rather, not a bridge dam, a thread dam. Kind of push that material up. Yeah, and go a little farther. I might actually come up on top here, maybe get one little wrap on top. Oops, there we go. Let me just do that.
Jim, while you're doing that, why are you using black thread instead of like a yellow?
I'm doing it so you guys can see the thread.
Ah, okay.
Normally and you know what I have tied these with a lot, although I didn't do it tonight because I have to have a really delicate touch, is monofilament thread. I just got some 0.006 monofilament thread in the mail the other day because I wanted to try it out, because all I had was the 0.004, which is what is kind of the standard for doing little pugliese fiber flies. But I wanted to tie with it a little bit before I demoed with it. And so, but I do have, well, I don't have yellow strung up over here. I have orange strung up. That might have not been a bad color, but what I'm going to do a little later here. So, oh, you know what? I forgot something. That's okay. You know what? We're going to add it now. So that's the beauty of these flies. They don't have to be tied in a particular certain order. I'm going to use this is really a cool flash. It's called root beer. It's got some elements of orange and gold in it, a little peacock in it. So I should have put this, I meant to put this around my tail and I forgot to, but you know what? I'm just going to put it around this bunch of hair because it'll work just as well. One of the things I don't want, one of the things I don't want to do um, is over flash these flies. And that's true with my bass flies too, because where I fish is a lot of clear water stuff. If you're fishing places that's not very clear water, then yeah, flash them up, so the fish can see them a little better. I'm going to try a little trick here. My thread is sliding off the bucktail. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on it. Okay, now I'll come back. There we go. Now it's sticking up there a little better. There we are. So now we'll just bring that through there, come and cut it. There we are. And you see some of the flash in here. Yeah, I don't over flash these things because um, I I have found, and I've had this happen lots of times, particularly for muskie, is I'll get all these follows with flashy stuff, but I rarely get them to eat them. But the thing is, I'm fishing really super clear lakes. Pike are a little more aggressive. They'll go ahead and they'll grab flashy stuff. But bass are the other way. I've had flies that, they would come and take a little run at it, but they wouldn't eat it because it was just too much for them. So I think, you know, take your flash and your tying and gauge it to your water clarity, and that's probably the best to create flies that fish are going to go after. You've got to kind of moderate that amount of flash you're using. Okay, now I'm going to just fill in a little bit with a little more of this. Now I'm switching over to orange because I'm going to have an orange belly on this fly. Get my flash out of the way here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice, I haven't left a lot of space for my streamer hair because I don't want a ton of streamer hair here. So let me come in here and let me show you. Let me clear the way here. There's all kinds of streamer hairs out there. And I've used a lot of them. One of the natural ones is Icelandic sheep. Um, this is the piece that's actually left on the hide. This is kind of what it looks like when you use this stuff. When you cut it out, you really need to comb it out, and because it's got a lot of like under fur in it and stuff. And I've used it like this. I like. In fact, I got a lot of it. I still use this kind of stuff. But what Nature Spirit has done, I'll hawk Nature Spirit a little bit with you guys, is Thomas has taken the Icelandic sheep and he's carded it, and rather than being on the skin, he's taken it off the skin. And what he's allowed him to do is to take this and blend it. So I'm going to hold that up. Can you guys see that's got kind of a chartreuse black color to it? Okay, it's carded. Well, carded, I think, means he combs it out. He cuts it to length, combs it out. Then he has ways of blending it. I honestly don't exactly know what all that looks like. I've never seen it. Um, but they've got that here, which is really nice to work with. You can work, I've got Puglisi fiber synthetics. H2O makes really nice synthetics that some of the H2O stuff I have actually has a little bit of like real micro flash mixed into the fiber, which is kind of cool. Um, it gives the fly a nice little sparkly look. Um, and so really the techniques I'm going to show you, there's nothing, anything I'm doing right now, I could go over next door in my room where I got my tying materials, and I could come and grab some synthetics and do exactly the same thing with synthetics that I'm going to do with this stuff right here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a little bit. Now, one of the things about using these streamer hairs is be sparse. You know, when you think you got about the right amount, probably almost take half of it, and that's going to probably be about what you need. Okay. All right. So here it is. Here's the piece. And here's the other thing I do. So if you have watched Enrico Puglisi and guys like that tie, they got, I don't know what, they got a bazillion ways of, doing it. I don't know. They do all kinds of stuff with it. I basically have two things I do. There's only two. The first one is to put fibers on the bottom. So I'm going to take this yellow fiber, I'm going to put it on my side of the hook, and I'm going to kind of balance it out. I'm going to give it a couple wraps. And then I'm going to take this side and I'm going to fold it down like that, hold it down in place, and wrap it. Okay? That's one technique. Second technique is this. And other than at the very end of the fly, this is the only things that I do with these. I don't mess around trying to do, all sorts of different ways of tying it in. So now the second way I do is I take it and I make it like a little 45 on my side of the hook. Again, I'll balance it out here. Come, put a couple wraps on it, and now I just make a little V coming up over the fly like that, and then I wrap it in. Those are the only two techniques I use. Okay. And you'll see guys that'll put all kinds of stuff into them. I don't think you need to do that. Um, I think you can just stick with these two ways, maybe adjust a little at the end if you want. Okay. So let's do that again. I'll add one more bunch in here of the yellow. And what's nice about this particular hair is it's not, there's no taper to it. So you can cut it if you want to. And I will just, for the sake of, I guess I will shorten this one up a little bit. We'll make this a little shorter. Put that little piece down there. And then just put a little taper on it. Although we're gonna comb it out and probably trim it at the end. So now I just come forward a little bit, same thing. Come around, loop around. And then I'll do another little V on top. And with this stuff, I find this stuff that because it's a natural material, there tend to be short hairs in it. Like right now I'm pulling on now, but if you take it and you just pull it apart, I don't have to do this with the synthetics, but with this stuff, if you take it and pull it apart and then put it back together, you'll kind of get the fibers, the kind of realign the fibers a little bit so that um, you don't have to, so you won't lose any after you tie it in. Okay. Okay. So we're starting to get kind of a minnow shape going here. Okay, now I'm going to switch over. We'll start putting some other colors in here. So I'm going to just go to orange. And you can do, this is a pretty bright orange. He's got some nice pumpkin oranges and stuff that they've done, which is kind of nice. If I wanted to do a little more muted looking color, I could do that. So same thing, this is going to be the belly. So actually, let me shorten this up a little bit. So do my bottom amount here. Okay, now I'm going to create a little bit of a blended top here. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna take advantage of some of these blends. I'm gonna start with, this is a blend of basically olive and yellow. It's a little lighter blend. If I take these two and I stack them, you can see it's very subtle, but it'll move from a little lighter olive to a little darker olive. So I'm going to start with this, get a piece of it. And I don't know if the fish care about this or not. I mean, I'm probably, as with most flies, I'm probably really overthinking it, but it looks nice. So, what the heck. So again, this is gonna be my top V. So we'll put that in here like that. Pull everything back, give it a couple of reps. Now, you can, if you want, you can add a little glue as you go. I don't worry too much about it. I'm tying these tiny materials right in the middle of them. I don't think they're going to pull out too much. So comb it out, and you're starting to kind of see that shape come in there. Okay, now let's go get some more orange. So come to my side, wrap a couple times, roll it over, wrap, and put it to the bottom. Do another bit of this lighter olive here on the top. And we'll go a little bit of orange again. Again, same thing. I'm just doing that little fold over V. That's all I'm doing. And now I'll go to this little darker olive and put a little bit darker color up on the top here. You could have gone all olive too. It wouldn't have mattered, I don't think. I mean, I've only just started using some of this blended stuff anyway. Although you can get a lot of blended colors in synthetics too. Okay, so we're starting to get there. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice how this hair keeps wanting to come up. That's because of that reverse tie um, bucktail underneath. Okay, now I'm going to take a quick jaunt next door and get my feathers and one other material that I want to use on this fly. So I'll be
here. And then the rest is what you saw him do.
okay. Now, and the only reason I'm adding a feather is to add a feather. I mean, I could come. I would like some I could do it with a black pen. I've done it with black pens before, but just, I mean, more to illustrate the point. Okay, these four materials, bucktail, flash, streamer hair, and feathers are basically the components, and you just kind of mix and match them and create these flies. So I'm going to toss a feather in here. This is just a whiting. This is just a whiting bugger pack. Um, it's just some nice, I don't know if these are saddle. Look, they're pretty long. There might be some saddle feathers. We're just going to take two of them here. And I'll just match them up. And I'll put them along, start by putting them along your side of the, where you guys can see it. We'll match the tip up to the end of the fly. These feathers are nice and long. So we'll do that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Like I said, I could have also just not even done this step at all. And I could have just used a pen and put some markings. Because if you look at a perch, perch have little, vertical bar type stripes on them. Now I'll do the same thing on my side of the fly. Just kind of put these feathers in there. Oops, let me do that again. It's a little short. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to come in here. Now I'm going to do a little different technique, a little bit different thing with the way I put the streamer hair on the sheep. And this is the only place I'm going to do this. And you'll see why I'm going to do it in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bunch and kind of lay it across the top like that. And I'll do it. When I look at my bunch here, I'm going to kind of, I don't know, 60-40 maybe, something of that nature. So I got a little more going over the back end than I have over the front. Okay, then I'm just going to leave that there. Then I'm going to come in and now just to kind of seal the deal, we'll use synthetic rather than natural. I could go get some natural sheep or whatever, but let's use a synthetic. This is just ice fur, this hairline ice fur. Any synthetic, if you had a nice red you know, fleecy fibers, whatever, wouldn't matter. Just anything of that nature. So cut this one in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll this up here. All I need is a couple wraps. I don't need to flip the fly over, I don't think. And I'm just going to leave these sitting like this. Now I'm going to come in here and do a big old whip finish. If I can get the fibers out of the way. Come on, it's getting ugly. There we go. I'll do one more. Let's do a half hitch. Half hitch will be enough. Okay. So trim this red up a little bit, make it a little shorter. All right. So now what I'm going to do, okay, now you've probably seen a lot of guys, you could do this and pull it back, and you could do a UV head and all that. But I don't do a ton of like commercial tying. I don't do any commercial tying actually, very little. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use one of these fish masks. So this is a Flyman product, and it's basically like an epoxy head on a pre-made epoxy head. So just kind of slide it back over on that. See if it fits there. It seems like it fits pretty well. So I don't know if you guys can see, where it's sitting in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my Loctite glue. If you've watched me do some of these on YouTube, I was for a while putting UV in there because I thought, well, the head's clear, the UV would cure. It did cure. Problem with UV is it's not really a glue. UV resin, it's not really a glue. And after fishing some of them, I had the heads come loose. And after talking with a couple of great streamer tires down in Denver, Chris Kruger and Steve Maldonado, I would imagine some of you guys, those are familiar names. They were like, oh yeah, you got to use this stuff, which is sort of more like a gelled super glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, just put a little glob here on the head of it. Then I'm going to put that on, kind of work it around a little bit. And then we'll put a little thread dam in front of it. One thing you notice is, other than this head, the thread wraps are all pretty obscure. You don't really see any thread. So the color thread doesn't matter all that much. And then okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'll come in here and find my comb buried in here among all this stuff. Comb it out a little bit. And then I don't want to trim my feathers, but what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll do a little trim on it just to give it a little bit more of a fish shape. And this is what you do with synthetics too. See, I made a little fan out of it, so I'll just come right in here along the thing and get a little taper going. So see, I'm starting to taper it down a little bit. So you see it's starting to come and get a kind of a nice little fish shape going there. Get the feather up there on the side. I think what I'll show you a little trick with the feather. Okay, let's lay this down. Make sure you guys can see this. All right, so now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab. So what's interesting about, or what's nice about this Lyman stuff is it's all kind of put together for you. The number 8, this is a number 8.5. Fold it over. There you go. See the 8.5? These are 8.5 millimeter eyes. So the eyes match the head. And I'm using the Wind, which has a little bit of orange tint to them. Get them out of here. Okay. So let me grab one of them. And come back to my Zap-A-Gap. Put a little bit of Zap in there. Just wet it just a little bit. And then set my eye in the socket. These have a little socket in them. You can just kind of press that in there and hold it for a moment. Okay, so there's one eye. I'll come in here and do the other side. Grab my eye. Pop it down in there. Press it in there and hold it for a moment. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with a little bit of UV. And I'm using a really thin. You can use a little thicker. This says it's thin. It's a lot thicker than this bone dry though. Bone dry is pretty good because it really flows. So I'm going to put a little bit right here on the eye, just kind of let it flow around into that. And this will kind of seal that up. And these eyes will be pretty tough. Then I'm going to just throw a little dot of it right down here on top of that feather. And then that feather will stay in place. Now, you guys, I do have this industrial powered. I got this from my dentist, which is great. You'll see. I use a flashlight when I travel, but this thing is like, it's bright. And it cures the stuff like crazy. I mean, it just makes it really hard, really fast. But a flashlight would do the same thing. Now I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll just fill in that. I'm going to put a little dot right there at the feather just to hold it in place. Hit it with some light. I don't know if you see the smoke coming off from it. I think that is curing. Now, that's what I do like the bone dry for is it's real good for the thread wraps because it really soaks down in. And I want to be careful not to get any in my eye. So just hit the thread wraps there. And back. Try not to shine that in your guys' eyes. So there you have it. Just kind of a, I may even have overdressed this one a little bit. It's so easy to overdress these things. But that's a pretty good size fly. One of the things I will tell you too is, um, I'm not going to dispute throwing big flies for muskie. I know big flies work, but I also know in lakes and stuff, I've caught muskie on this size fly right here. And this fly right here, I could throw very easily with a 9 weight. I could probably even throw it with an 8 weight and a good taper. The one of the things I'll do in fishing these guys is I'll do a few things. One is I will fish it off a full intermediate, which is nice because it's a real slow sink, and this has no weight in it. And I fish it across because I got a few. Like if you go back into some bays or stuff that have water, have weeds, and there's about 3 or 4 feet of water above the weeds, you can just fish this right across the top of the weeds. It's a real effective way for pulling fish up out of the weeds. And then the other thing I'll do with this is I have Scientific Anglers makes a little 5-foot mini sink tip. So if I'm fishing shoreline stuff and shallow and hitting swimming it past cover and stuff, I'll use one of those mini sink tips. And then I'll use full graded sinking lines, the graduated sinking lines. Rarely, probably the fastest line I have is the tip is a number 5, like an SA number 5. And I don't know off the top of my head what the sink rate is on it. The nice thing about fishing lakes is, if you need it to sink deeper, just sit and count it down a little farther. You don't have to, have a bunch of lines and stuff in there. As far as rigging this, if I'm pike fishing, I will, a lot of times I'll just use, especially on sinking lines like the intermediate or whatever, I'll use maybe like some 20-pound, 25-pound fluoro, and I'll use a Albright knot with some 30 or 40-pound wire, and then on the end of the wire, I'll put on one of the little Rio clips, which I love. The little there's a couple different kinds, but the ones I like are the little twists around. You kind of snap the fly around. I don't have one here. There's pictures of them in my book, by the way. Um, and I'll just clip the fly on and fish off the clip. That way I can change flies and stuff if I want to. If I'm fishing for muskie, I will go to saltwater fluorocarbon, like real heavy saltwater fluorocarbon, um, and use that for my bite tippet. I use it's called a Slim Beauty to put it on the fly, and then I'll just do a little overhand knot, tighten it up, and then do a second overhand knot so the knots ride on top of one another and put it through the clip so it can't, that. So it's just because it's big, heavy stuff, and I'll put it through the clip or maybe do a one loop cinch knot, um, and then clip the fly on and go fish it just that way. So,
Big a rod are you using?
um, oh boy, I've got a bunch of different ones. You know, I've been with Sage for years, so I'm partial to Sage, and they're the Farbanks group now, which is Reddington and Sage and Rio lines. Rio's got some nice lines too, although I've been using SA lines a lot lately. But the Predator rod, I mean, I've got a I've got a 10 weight. Both the 10 and 11 weight in the Reddington Predator rods have a model that has the extended grip on it. So if you're fishing, and I talk a little bit about fishing muskie, but um, that's a less expensive one. Then of course you want the little higher end rods. The new rods are the payloads, and I have a 10, 11, 9 weight payload as well that I can use. I like the 8 weight payload. I use that quite a bit. This fly I could cast on an 8 weight with the right lines. And yeah, I think that's it. But those rods are not, there's a lot of companies that make great rods. I mean, I'm not, I, but I think I'll tell you what I think. The lines are more, in some ways, more important than the rods. You can't go take a 8 weight trout, like a weight forward 8 weight trout line, like a standard weight forward. I mean, you could, but bass bug or pike musky type lines are more extreme tapers. They got more weight out at the tip of the line, which is going to allow you to turn these flies over, and especially the bigger deer hair stuff, um, turn the flies over, um, and make it a lot easier to fish on. One thing I will say about fishing with those big heavy tapers is for warm water stuff, strip it in until you get the head of the line, because normally they're color coded. Modern lines are multicolored a lot of times, so you see where the head is at. Get the head up to the tip of the line, then cast, and really just one false cast, and then let the weight and head carry the line out, and you can pretty easily shoot 50, 60 feet of line, which is probably about all you normally need. So
Thinking
yeah.
with this kind of a fly, you could downsize a little bit. We have some new lakes, relatively new lakes in the area that only have smallmouth and yellow perch. They're real small, like neighborhood lakes, but they put a lot of rock in them and a lot of bottom contour, and they only have perch and smallmouth in them. And I think there's two new lakes that are coming up in kind of more north of Omaha, northwest of Omaha, that are, uh, I think, going to have the same fish in them, because the the watershed is pure. They don't have a lot of carp or other things in it that are going to mess that fishery up. So um, you could downsize this a little bit and make it a smaller perch and use it for smallmouth, and maybe cast it with a 5 or 6
Yeah.
weight.
This head that I put on here is the Fit Flyman 8.5. It's the biggest one they make.
Right.
Yeah, they drop all the way down to a 3, which is really little. In fact, if you look, did I put those? I'm not sure if I got pictures of them in that second book. I'll tie little woolly buggers and little. I did little Polyrospero, like nondescript nymph, and I popped a little head, one of those little number 3 heads on it to make it look like a little fry. And so, yeah, you could definitely downsize this, um, and just do a lot less material and just, you know,
We
I
do
mean,
have one lake. We do have one
uh,
lake here locally that has some pike in it. And maybe for another 4 or 5 years, we'll have access to some pretty decent pike. If you can get out in a boat and go to Flanagan, you could fish a fly this big
yeah.
and maybe get some. I think the forage there is pretty much small panfish. There's no yellow perch in it, but still, and this kind of pattern like this, it says sunfish too. So
Oh, yeah. And
sure,
I don't,
yeah.
this one, a lot of times, I mean, basically, if you just put the top on here and you put chartreuse on here, a chartreuse top on it, that becomes that fire tiger pattern. And so, and you can just, the reason I did this pattern is I kind of wanted to like say, okay, like pay attention to the foreign material. Literally, I don't know if you guys probably a lot of you guys are aware. You guys are fly tires, a lot of you are. You're probably aware, but if you just start going back through YouTube and looking at some of the different patterns that are tied, it's basically these 4 materials. That's what they're using. And really, technique wise, bucktail, it's basically 2 things. You're either doing it in the back, like I did with my tail, or you're doing the reverse tie and sweeping it back to get that hollow look to it. That's about it. I mean, you take those things and mix and match that stuff, and then you can scale up, you can scale down. You can do, you can, take, you can do very similar stuff with so a couple of shanks and create the flies like Blaine Chocolate's flies, some of his game changer type stuff. And so there's a lot of once I think, at least this was true for me, once I kind of deciphered, because I for a long time I watch guys like Chris and Steve and guys Ty, and they do some really unique things. I'm not going to say I've covered the game. I haven't even, but they got some other stuff they do as well. But once I kind of deciphered, okay, this is how they're building them. This is the way they're getting the shapes and things. At that point, then I was able to just start creating the kind of flies that I thought would work and have worked. And so, so there you have it. I mean, it's just kind of, it's
Other
just kind
questions
of,
out there?
huh?
Any other questions out there?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not hearing anything come my direction.
None.
Okay. Let me clear the boards here. Do we have time? Where are we at time wise? What do you guys want to do tonight? Where are we? What do you normally do time wise?
We usually do 60, 90 minutes usually.
Well, right about at 60. Do you want to? The only thing I was going to do, I already have the tails tied up. I mean,
Okay.
you guys have seen me tie tails. I thought I might do a mixed hair. I show you mixed hair, which is kind of cool. It absolutely has zero um, fishing. The fish don't care if you do a mixed hair technique and you get a nice looking speckled look to your fly.
But it sure
But
makes flies look cool.
they look cool. They're fun, to tie. Um, and they look kind of cool. I thought I would show you because you look at if you get online and you look at any of Jeff Raleigh um, or Chad Robinson, he's another guy. He's a Midwest guy back kind of more your direction that are tying these deer hair flies, these beautiful deer hair flies. They are using mixed hair techniques on virtually every pattern they're tying these days. I mean, once in a while I'll see a fly that is a single, just solid colors, but you see them do mixed hair stuff all the time. And so um, what I could do, let's do this. I'll this let's just put a tail in here. This is a partridge predator X hook, and I've done Just my standard bass bug tail. You guys see me do it many times. Got the center, got the, the marabou, the chickaboo type stuff in the center. It's got some grizzly whiting, grizzly hen cape feathers for the legs or tails, whatever you want to call it. And then it's got kind of a mixed collar for the for the for this collar. So that's nothing new. I mean, I've done those. I've been doing these for years, and I've got videos on them. And I know I did a tail for you guys last time. So let's see, where's everything here? Let's just get this stuff out of the way. Okay, so I've just got a bunch of colors of hair here. So I'll kind of describe what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put white on the bottom. I'm going to make this a diver, so I'll put a nice big red diving color on the top. Then the main part of the color will be white. I'll have a white belly. The top will be white, but then I'm going to put a real intricate spot on the top that I will use a mixed hair technique for. It'll look kind of cool. So we'll just kind of do this as quickly as possible. And then I don't even really probably, well, maybe we'll trim it out. We'll see. We'll see. You guys tell me when you're tired of watching me tie flies, and then I'll stop. But let's see if I can knock it out and maybe get to the point where I trim it. You can see what the color. Actually, I could show you some examples. So I've got some examples in the other room. So I could show you the technique and then just show you the examples of what they look like. Okay, so I'm going to my gel spun thread. Got a little wrap here on my bobbin. There we go. Okay, so we'll start with, now the thing about, okay, so if you want pure white, you got to go to the belly hair. And one of the things that's interesting is Nature Spirit has just started doing the same tanning process for their belly hair that they did for their spinning hair. It used to be the belly hair was like untanned, it was like stiff. You could, the hide would break. Now it's tanned like the other stuff, which in some ways makes it easier to work with. So I'm just going to take a nice big bunch here. And I've shown this to you. You guys have watched me tie before. You've seen me tie this. And I said, this is the technique. Once you figure this out, all these bass bugs, you can start tying them. And that's getting this bunch to go to the bottom of the hook shank. So you want to come in here. You got 1, 2 wraps. And so if you remember, see, I was just wanting to start to flare. That's the tension you need. And then you rotate it to the bottom of the hook shank, put your thumb on it and flare it. And it will all go to the bottom of the hook shank. Now, I'm going to take my red hair and I'm going to stack it because I'm going to make a collar out of this. Okay, so I'm going to lay that in. Typically, I'll measure the tips back to about the bend of the hook, although this is a pretty big hook. This is a 5/0 hook, so it's big. So I'm probably going to come a little shy just because the hair is not all that long and I need the stuff up front for the diving collar. So I come in, do 2 wraps, then now this is a little different than what I've done in the past. I mean, I've doing this last year and I probably did this when I demoed last year with you guys, but take your fingers and hold it on each side and really force that hair to stay right up on top of the hook shank and flare it on top. And then, now here's another thing, if you go into my deer hair book, what I was doing then is I was putting a bunch on this side and that side to create the collar. And it works, but you got to be so careful with if you take more hair on this side than on this side, then the collar, the hair, will start to bleed down around in. And I didn't like that. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I wouldn't. What I found is if I just come here in the center and I put the hair in the middle, I kind of start taking advantage of the fact that the hair will naturally distribute around the hook shank. So again, if I just really hold it here and flare it, it'll kind of distribute around. And I can see now if you look, it's pretty much halfway around. And just because this is so big, I'm going to just toss one other little tiny bunch in here, not a huge bunch, but I want to have plenty of hair for a diving collar. So on these really big ones, I just go two on smaller flies, but this one I'm going to put a third group in there. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll separate this hair, pull the red up on top, the white on the bottom. And then here's another thing is get some tension on that thread when you pull it up through so that you don't hook some hair and fold some hair over. And now where is my, oh, come on, here we go. And I got to use the back of this is such a big hook, my tapered end, which is not, I got a lot of taper, but it won't go over it. So I got to use the other end of the thing and just kind of work the knot on. And then I'll come in here. You're not going to get much of a hack with this because I'm up against the tail, but I'll get a little bit. I'll push against that knot. And yeah, you want to push against the knot so you're pushing the thread back. You don't want to try to push the hair back. Kind of done that with you guys. So now let's come forward. So now I'm going to take another bundle of white. One of the things about belly hair too is it's short, which is kind of a challenge when working with bigger flies. It's a little easier to tie with spinning hair or even elk hair because it's a lot longer, and elk hair has got a little bigger. The shaft of hair is a little bigger around than deer also. Okay, let's put another bunch on the top. Okay, now we'll come in and I'm going to really kind of play with some color here on this one. I'm going to take a little tiny bit of gray, just a little bit. And again, what I'm doing has nothing to do with fishing, guys. It's just sort of the artistry of tying the fly, I guess you'd say. And then again, hold it on top. I used to put my thumb in it, but again, things would stray. So holding it on top, I've started doing that more, and then come back and spread it. Then I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of black. I'll put a little black. So what I'll have is a little gray ring, and then I'll have this little bit of a black ring. Okay. Spread that. So now let me adjust my camera. I'm going to show you. Okay. Let's see. What am I seeing here? You guys seeing my desk? You're seeing my desk. See my hands, what I'm doing right here? Yes, Mike, can you see my hands okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So let's get, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take these three colors here and I'm going to create a mix of them. So what I do is I'm going to come in here, and this is basically any hair you work with, you always want to come in and pull the hair and take it and cut it right at the skin. So I'm going to take a little snip of gray, take a little snip of white, and then I'm going to take a little snip of red. And I'm just kind of holding all those right together. Okay. Now, okay, let me get a hold of all of it there. See, the white's shorter than the other, but I'm going to comb out the fur in it. Okay, I don't need these tips, so that's one thing I'm going to get rid of right away is I'm going to get rid of these tips. Okay, now what I do is I lay it in my hand like this. Okay, and I'm going to start moving it around. And what I'm looking for is I see that like the bunch of red there. I want to split that up. There's a bunch of gray, split that up. And then every now and then I'll kind of restack. And I'm just going to kind of work to find groups where the color is pretty solid and just kind of mix it up. I've kind of lost my white in there. There's a little bit of white. It's not going to have a lot of white. And then kind of restack. Okay. So that's kind of how it's looking like a mess right now. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to slide it down into my stacker like that. It's fussy. And then just to make sure it's mixed up, I will give it a little spin with my dubbing needle. Stack it. Now let's come back up here to my fly. So now I'll pull that stacked group of hair out. And I'll come in here, get some of these long ones, lay that right in the center of the bunch, come and get it with my thread, and then flare it right down in place. Stack it back, and now you can start to see that. So that's kind of how I do it. So I'll tell you what, let's, rather than having me finish, because it would take me a while to finish this fly out. Let me take this out. I'm going to go get some samples. So I'm going to get a couple flies and just kind of show you what they look like. So you saw the technique. Here's one I kind of had some fun with. From just a tying standpoint, I used the church window feather of off a pheasant skin. And then if you look at the pattern, you can see I did a mix. It's kind of got a cream colored bottom. So I took and I did a mix of cream and brown on the top, and that was that mixed hair technique. This is one that I did with some guinea. I got some other ones I'm kind of playing around with this one. And you can see see how speckled the top, the head is. That's just a speckled white and black. That's a pretty simple one. Here's one that I had a dyed olive pheasant skin. And I like the church window feathers. This one also, what I did with this one too, is the center feathers all come from the pheasant. This whole tail is pheasant. It all came out of off the pheasant skin. And then I did kind of an olive and brown. And I did what I did here too was I did a double ring. It's hard to see, but I have a black ring and then I have just a little bit of a tan ring. And then the olive is kind of that speckled brown and olive. And I got a couple different colors of olive in there, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of, when you trim them out, that's kind of what they end up looking like. So yeah, I mean, and there's no fishing reason to do that. It's just, I don't know. It's playing with deer hair, making the flies look pretty. I don't know. I'll go fish. I have no doubt fish will eat them. I feel confident of that. But it's more just sort of the artistic side of just playing with materials and kind of doing some different stuff with them. And I've been wanting to do some of these red and gray ones. I had a couple of them, but I gave them away. I was doing a tying clinic at Orvis a month ago, and I gave some of them away. Anyway, there you have it. That's about an hour and 15 minutes or so.